New information has emerged from investigations into a deadly metro accident last week.
I'm James Chater in Hiroshima, Japan, here on the eve of the G7 summit, where growing Chinese assertiveness is set to feature high on the agenda.
A new contaminated batch of imported berries raises concerns over Taiwan's food safety. Plus, one Taiwanese theatre group is combining acting and artificial intelligence. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Yin Khvat. Taichung Metro is under fire for not carrying out any safety drills, simulating a foreign object falling onto the tracks. It follows last week's deadly crash that saw a crane collapse onto the path of an oncoming train. Bing Wang has the details.
A week after a crane fell 31 floors in Taichung, causing a metro crash that killed one person and injured 10 others, more information comes out about the rail company's safety practices. A city councilor discovered that while the Taichung MRT has held over 100 simulations and drills over the past 2 years, none dealt with foreign objects falling onto the tracks.
我们发现他竟然从来没有做过异物掉落入侵轨道的这个演习，难怪今天在意外发生的时候，整个从行控中心到现场应变人员都没有办法立即来处理这件事情。
Taichung Metro officials refuted the politicians' findings.
去年在9月24号，我们执行了列车障碍物侦测的演练。那今年的4月8号，我们针对地震之后产生的障碍物做了演练。所以这1-2年，我们都陆续做相关的演练题目。
But footage of the incident has shown that it took rail staff 41 seconds to respond to the crane on the track, and the company's safety practices are facing much criticism. One of Taichung's former representatives to the Legislative Yuan, Chen Bo-wei, aired his doubts online. He said, under the current regulations governing construction of public or private buildings and advertising structures along rapid transit routes, construction is prohibited within 6 meters of rapid transit routes. The crane boom that caused the accident in Taichung measured about 40 meters. Its radius of rotation covered the track, which is clearly illegal. Chen concluded that the construction company and the Taichung city government, which reviewed the construction permit, are both responsible. As local and national investigations into the crash continue, the Taichung Metro said it will review its current standards and procedures, and will hold another drill simulating obstacles on tracks to strengthen contingency responses. Lian Lian and Bing Wang for TaiwanPlus.
US President Joe Biden has told Japanese Prime Minister Kishida Fumio that the two countries are stronger when standing together. The two leaders held bilateral talks on the eve of the G7 summit, where Russia and China are set to dominate the talks. James Chater reports now from Hiroshima.
World leaders are touching down in Hiroshima, Japan for this year's G7 summit. Japan's hosting the meeting for the first time in 7 years, and friction with its neighbour China is set to dominate discussions. Beijing is a key trading partner of every G7 member state. But China's growing influence has concerned G7 leaders, and at this summit, they want to find a unified approach to that challenge.
A lot of the focus right now within the G7 is more on how to counter Chinese economic coercion.
The G7 is made up of 7 of the world's most advanced economies, which together account for more than a quarter of global GDP. The EU also attends G7 meetings. This year, several other countries have been invited, including South Korea, Australia, and India. The G7 meeting in Hiroshima, where nuclear weapons were used for the first time in history, is a potent symbol of when geopolitical tensions get out of control. This year's summit takes place as regional concerns grow over the fate of Taiwan, the democratic country which China claims as its own. In the last 9 months, Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen has met with 2 US House speakers, both of which triggered days of Chinese military exercises around Taiwan. But the G7 agenda is stacked. and includes Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine, its threat to use nuclear weapons, along with dangers posed by North Korea and extreme weather caused by climate change. Those items, plus broader concerns about China, could mean Taiwan is pushed further down the agenda.
There are some countries, for example, that might be willing to consider, and there are such discussions underway behind closed doors, what kind of sanctions might be imposed on China if it were to use force against Taiwan. But I just don't think that that would be on the leaders' agenda.
This is the first Asian G7 summit since 2016, and in that time, attention on this region has skyrocketed as US-China tensions have come to dominate global politics. But in that new political climate, Taiwan is the key flashpoint, and so even without being explicitly addressed, tensions over the country will be quietly colouring the discussions. Andy Schur and James Chater in Hiroshima, Japan for TaiwanPlus.
Now, while the G7 is held in Japan, China is hosting its own summit. World leaders from 5 Central Asian countries are meeting in northwestern China for 2 days. Harel Hughes reports.
2 global meetings and a contrast in styles. In Japan, leaders of the group of 7 countries are meeting to discuss topics like climate change, the war in Ukraine, and China's rising influence. At the same time, Chinese President Xi Jinping is hosting leaders from 5 countries, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan, for the China Central Asia Summit. The 2-day event is being held in Xi'an, China's historic capital city. The goal? Building up regional unity.
双方要大力弘扬传统友好，坚定相互支持，深化互利合作，共谋发展振兴，推动构建世代友好、高度互信、休戚与共的中哈命运共同体。
In a series of one-on-one meetings, Xi welcomed leaders from the 5 invited countries and emphasized building stronger relations. On Friday, all 6 leaders will meet for a keynote speech from Xi and are expected to sign a number of bilateral agreements. China is one of the largest trading partners for countries in this area, and Central Asia is one of the first regions to join China's Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI. The BRI is a development program that's helped build infrastructure in developing nations. It's been criticized for loading countries with debt, but the investments have largely been welcomed by countries in Central Asia.
It connects all the efforts from east to west. In between, in the east and west, we're situated like Uzbekistan country is a Central Asian country, and we benefit more.
The China Central Asia Summit begins 1 day before G7 leaders meet in Japan. It's a contrast between 2 increasingly separate blocs of Western nations and those with closer ties to China. But despite that, U.S. President Joe Biden said on Wednesday that he was working for a meeting with President Xi.
Soon enough, we will be meeting.
But with their increasingly different views of the world, bringing the leaders of the U.S. and China around the same table will be easier said than done. Patrick Chen and Harel Hughes for TaiwanPlus.
Ukraine's foreign minister has told a visiting Chinese envoy that his country will not cede its land to Russia in exchange for a peace agreement. Dmitry Kuleba was speaking to Li Hui, China's special representative for Eurasian affairs, who was visiting Kyiv this week. Kuleba doubled down on previous statements from his government, saying Ukraine will reject any proposals to end the conflict that involve the loss of its territories. Ukrainian forces recently began a counter-offensive against Russian forces in the east of the country. Ukraine's military says it has since made advances in the contested city of Bakhmut. A group of visiting Swedish lawmakers has met with Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen. During the meeting, one member of parliament voiced his support for Taiwan.
The fact that Taiwan is excluded from a number of important international organizations, and this despite the fact that most of the free world consider Taiwan as a significant international player in trade, diplomacy and democracy, is of course completely unacceptable.
Vaihil says the 4-member delegation will continue to push for Taiwan's participation in international organizations. The country is excluded from bodies like the World Health Organization and the International Civil Aviation Organization because of pressure from China. The Swedish delegation is in Taiwan until May 19th and will discuss issues such as trade and defending democracy against what Vaihil called authoritarian forces. Taiwan's Costco branches have recalled yet another frozen berry product that tested positive for hepatitis A contamination. It's part of a growing issue involving the safety of imported food products in the country. Joyce Zhang looks at why.
One of the things Taiwan is best known for is its food scene. Daytime markets like these offer up fresh produce, while visitors to the country's night markets can find a variety of sweet and savory snacks. But Taiwan has had a complicated history with food safety, with some of the latest scandals involving imported goods.
The latest scare? Frozen berries tainted with hepatitis A sold in the Taiwan branches of American wholesaler Costco. Last month, imports of the company's Kirkland brand mixed berry and blueberry products tested positive for the virus, and now new batches of its frozen strawberries have too. The berries are now a part of a growing list of recalled food products. That's included Indonesian instant noodles, Haagen-Dazs ice cream, and even baby formula. Ruben Wong, a public health professor at National Taiwan University, says a driving factor behind these incidents are Taiwan's changing eating habits.
Previously, for Chinese, we often eat like cooked food. We didn't eat those ready-to-eat food. These eating habits actually came from the foreign countries.
This change means more reliance on supermarkets with imported goods, as opposed to traditional outdoor vendors and night markets. Wang says scale matters here.
For night market, because they are individual, a person to prepare the food, so the damage is not that big compared to the food that is selling from the big companies.
As food trends cross borders, there is more reliance on preserving the goods to last the journey. Wang says this means there are unknown risks for the consumer.
There are a lot of food distributed nowadays, new food and new technologies involved in the food processing. We don't know about the new contaminants, so people have to be more vigilant about their food they're eating right now.
Taiwan first passed its food sanitation law in 1975 and since then has expanded its oversight of food safety. The country now has at least 4 different government bodies dedicated to monitoring food-related health issues, but Wang says they may not be well enough equipped to keep track of new products from overseas.
Though new tech can help preserve food for longer, the science behind it is still developing. For now, Taiwanese consumers can stick to the idea that fresh is best. Klein Wang and Joyce Zhen for TaiwanPlus.
The World Health Organization last week said that mpox is no longer a global health emergency, but cases are still spreading in Taiwan. Sam Robbins takes a look at the government's prevention response.
Taiwan recorded 12 new domestic cases of mpox this week, bringing the total to 81 since March. The country's Centers for Disease Control also expects cases to rise for the rest of May and into June. The mpox virus was formerly known as monkeypox. Even as the World Health Organization is downgrading the severity of mpox internationally, in the short term at least, the situation is likely to get worse in Taiwan. The country confirmed domestic transmissions had taken place in March. From that time, Taiwan purchased vaccines and set up a system to allow people to register for jabs. But activists say the initial response was not enough.
就是大家在登记疫苗的时候，很像是在抢演唱会，非常的困难，大概几分钟就结束了这样。
Now that Taiwan has more vaccines, the main challenge has been ensuring that at-risk populations have access to and are willing to get a jab. Mpox is not a sexually transmitted disease. It spreads through skin contact, but the disease has mostly spread among the LGBTQ community and in particular, men who have sex with men. Taiwan Tongzhi Hotline Association President Sean Du has said that there has been much negative discussion online, and that some doctors and politicians have made statements targeting the LGBTQ community.
我担心会让一些大众会误会成是说好像是少数族群没有顾好，然后传播到给更多的人这样子。我觉得这样说法其实对防疫是蛮没有帮助的。
But the government is now trying to work with communities. Dr. Stephane Wenwei-Gu says that this is something that Taiwan has learned from the COVID-19 pandemic.
我觉得CDC 也在这个疫苗的这些政策上面，除了找专家讨论之外，也会跟社群、跟卫生局或者跟医院各地做沟通。
The Taiwan Tongzhi Hotline Association has been hosting events and putting together resources, like these images, to ensure at-risk groups have information about prevention and vaccination. Activists and doctors say that when the government works with these communities, it's good for public health and public trust. Damon Lin and Sam Robbins for TaiwanPlus.
An international public media conference featuring professionals from stations like the UK's BBC, Japan's NHK and Taiwan's PTS, which we here at TaiwanPlus are part of, is underway in Taipei. This year, one of the big topics is virtual reality. Yu Jun Huang reports.
Turning their heads up and down, or leaning forward just a little bit, with just a small movement, these virtual reality users can see into a whole new world. The topic here is not for the faint of heart, though, as viewers are transported back to Taiwan's White Terror era, when tens of thousands were imprisoned and even lost their lives due to political repression. This is The Man Who Couldn't Leave, an award-winning work highlighted at this year's International Public TV Conference, Input, being held in Taipei. Director of the film, Xi'an, says VR changes the storytelling experience.
短短的30分钟，但是让你真的好像1950年代那些前辈们就在你身边，然后你好像可以感觉得到，然后这个是一般影片做不到的，就是一种身体感这样。
Input is also providing VR creators with a chance to discuss the art form. Here, Fish Wang, director of Red Tail, shares how his VR film was brought to life. The work is inspired by his own comic story about a boy chasing a mysterious red fish tail in the sky. And just like any VR work, it's an immersive experience that audiences can only get by putting on a headset. But while people here can all see the potential for virtual reality films, many say it has its limits for now.
VR is a very lonely experience in the way I see it, in contrary to cinema, which is going to a wide audience, and television, even wider audience. That's the thing I think that VR needs to accomplish still in the future.
所以我在研究如何让它可以透过分享，让更多人一起沉浸在这个空间里面。
VR is still in its early stages as an art form, but as more people start creating pieces that take advantage of its strengths, people here believe it will become a powerful storytelling tool. Howard Zhang and Eugene Huang for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up, find out why a prominent cartoonist's satirical comic strip was scrapped in Hong Kong.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus. For more great stories from here in Taiwan and around the world, please download the TaiwanPlus app. You've done it, right?
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. Singapore has executed a 37-year-old man for trafficking cannabis. The man was convicted for smuggling about 1.5 kilograms of the drug in 2019. Singapore has some of the strictest drug laws in the world. It mandates the death penalty for people found guilty of trafficking over 500 grams of cannabis. This is the country's second cannabis-related execution in 3 weeks. A Hong Kong newspaper has dropped a prominent cartoonist after reports of complaints by government officials. Our reporter Sandy Chi has the details.
Cartoon lawmaker huddling under an umbrella with his wife. This is 67-year-old Wang Geiguan's final comic strip, published on May 14, and Wang's goodbye to his readers. Wang is better known by his pen name, Junzi. For 40 years, he used his work to defend freedom of expression, challenge the status quo, and satirize Hong Kong and Chinese politics.
即係除咗新聞報導之外，漫畫其實係記錄一啲嘅社會嗰啲嘅情緒啊，或者啲嘅諗法係一啲即係好 layman 嘅諗法啦，大眾嘅諗法啦嚇，咁啊提出質疑啊咁樣樣。呢個我覺得係健康嘅社會、健康嘅環境之下應該係要做嘅嘢。
Hong Kong newspapers published Wang's satirical cartoons since the early 1980s. But now Ming Bao, the last remaining paper to carry his cartoons, has axed the strip. Before, the pro-democracy newspaper Apple Daily was forced to shut down in 2021. It too carried Wang's work.
今次畫咗嘅漫畫咁，佢係慢慢係針對話畫嘅內容咧同事實不符啊咁。即係呢個當然係佢哋嗰個用嘅方法啦嚇。咁我諗個最大目的就唔係因為我畫過咩漫畫，我相信係個原因都係佢想係將啲意見聲音盡量係收細收到佢哋能夠係推行嘅任何嘅政策嗰陣時咧就減少阻力嘅。
The removal of Wang's comic strip reportedly comes after multiple complaints from government departments, including the police and security services. After Mingbao announced it would stop running Wang's cartoon, Hong Kong's chief executive John Lee said the city's government will clamp down on what it considers false or misleading information.
有可以認為政府做得唔啱嘅地方而作出批評嘅，日日都發生緊。不過呢，我係唔會容許必須反對任何一啲失實、偏頗、誤導或者污蔑嘅信息嘅。
Press freedoms in Hong Kong have dropped sharply in recent years, particularly since the implementation of the Beijing-imposed national security law. The law makes certain kinds of speech criminal acts. But despite this, Wang says he has no plans to leave the city and that he will continue to speak out whenever he can. Eason Chen and Sandy Chi for TaiwanPlus.
The UN's top climate body has said that the planet will likely breach a crucial temperature threshold in the next 5 years. The World Meteorological Organization said that it is almost certain the Earth will see its hottest year on record in that time. Scientists say temperature rises of over 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels may cause an irreversible climate breakdown. The prediction means the world is failing to make sufficient progress on slashing planet-heating greenhouse gas emissions, largely caused by burning fossil fuels. A group of scientists in the US are developing drones using the feathers of dead birds. It's part of research that's working to better understand the aerodynamics of birds for future aircraft development. Jaime Ocon has more.
At first glance, this might seem like a bird, but it's actually a drone, one that's covered in bird feathers. A team of engineers in the US state of New Mexico are using the feathers of taxidermied birds to develop a new aircraft and drone technology.
If we learn how these birds, they manage the energy between themselves, we can apply them into the future aviation industry to save more energy and save more fuel, and which will be more economics in the future in aviation industry.
The project is led by Mustafa Hassanalian, a professor of mechanical engineering. He says that during his research, it was nearly impossible to develop drones that could replicate the flight efficiency of a real bird. That's when he decided to use bird feathers to help drones stay in the air, as real feathers have some of the most efficient aerodynamics around.
And the only thing that we need to provide them to make them alive is to basically design an actuation mechanism, put it in their body, and everything is there. So they have their tail, they have their wings, they have their head, the body, everything is there.
By studying how the different parts of a bird work when it's in flight, the engineers were able to take the results and apply them in their research. They've already seen improvements in energy conservation and say the project's applications could apply to a variety of sectors.
So we cannot deny, this is a new research that we have introduced to the research communities. We cannot deny the application of this for other types of military types of application, but what we have in focus is mainly civil application, and specifically to understand the wildlife or monitor the birds.
The project will continue for the next 2 years. The next phase is to increase the amount of time the drones are in the air and hopefully take their development to new heights. John Su and Jaime Ocon for TaiwanPlus.
In Taipei, the stage has been set for a combination of art and modern tech. Local group Shine House Theatre has been working to enhance their performances by combining them with artificial intelligence. Harel Hughes reports.
This is a scene from Shine House Theatre's The Sound of the Tide. If you watch closely, you might notice something special. In this performance, actors and technology are working together. Every line spoken by the actors causes a change in the set's background, and it's all powered by artificial intelligence.
不同的演员他有不同的声线、声纹，去侦测他的音量、音语调等等，那还有语速，那这些都可以转换成这一次剧作相关的一些数位素材的即时影像。
Shine House Theatre began in Taipei in 2006. The theater group interprets classic literature and social issues through experimental artwork. But this is the first time the performers will combine their acting skills with advanced tech like AI.
未来如何跟整个剧场的元素统整在一起，其实是我们在这一次的初步合作当中，以及未来继续尝试的过程当中很好的第一步。
The group will travel to Europe in June. They'll perform in Prague, Lithuania, and Germany, showcasing their unique blend of AI and performance art for global audiences. Patrick Chen and Harel Hughes for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. Finally today, we'll leave you with images of the Tulip Festival in Canada. I'm Yin Khvat. Take care. See you next time.